Welcome to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno.
What's the latest news from the Paranormal Trenches? Are phenomena getting more common and more negative? And as far as the media are concerned, what really goes on behind the scenes of those hot paranormal TV shows?
Well, hello there, everyone, and welcome to the 83rd edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. I do not happen to be Paul, like it says on my script, because my dad didn't know I was going to be here today. So I am Ben, and the voice you just heard was that of my father and co-host, Paul.
Yeah, which will have a word with you after the show.
Anyway,
well, that's all right. We're happy to have longtime paranormal investigator Shane. Would you pronounce your
Sirois.
Sirois. Okay, now I've known Shane for 10 years, and that's a tribute either to my growing senility or to the fact that it's a difficult name to pronounce. It can be pronounced in various ways. Around Woonsocket here, you would say Sirois, the good old French name. But anyway, Shane is a very good friend. As a matter of fact, we first met on a case here in Woonsocket about 10 years ago, to which we had both been called at the same time, unbeknownst to each other. And we've kind of been brothers ever since. But anyway, before we get into our discussion today about the paranormal trenches and paranormal politics, if you will, we have our weekly contest. Ben, you want to take it away?
I can, will, and shall. In Greek mythology, what king tried to pull the wool over Zeus's eyes and was condemned to be a werewolf for the rest of his life? This was last week's question, of course. And, of course, the answer was King
Actually, it's...
I can't even pronounce that.
Okay, Lycaon.
All right, of Arcadia. He made the mistake of offending Zeus with a human sacrifice, which, of course, the Greek gods considered horrifying. So Zeus turned Lycaon into a werewolf. And that is where we get the word lycanthropy, the two Greek words meaning literally wolfman. This week's question is, what former military facility is considered one of the most haunted sites in the state of Washington? Have a go at it. Call us at 401-766-1240 locally or nationally at 800-449-1240. If nobody gets it before the end of the show, drop a line to me at ben@behindtheparanormal.com. Be first to get it right and win an autographed copy of my dad's 2002 book, Footsteps in the Attic. Sorry to keep stepping all over you.
Puns, I love. It's sheer punishment at times, Ben. We forgot to mention the winner. It was Mark from Mansfield, Ohio, who correctly answered that question about Greek mythology.
Oh, my bad.
Not a problem. It's a confusing script this week. I almost took that military facility question out of there. We think of these questions days in advance, and with the catastrophe that happened at Fort Hood, it's just horrifying, absolutely horrifying. But these the world can be a horrifying place. It can be an absolutely wonderful place. But anyway, that's our question for the week in the state of Washington. Okay, and we'll have to ask that tomorrow night because we're on the Seattle station tomorrow night in our CBS broadcast. Anyway, Shane, welcome to the show. Let me just introduce you a little bit more formally. Shane has been investigating homes for 19 years, even when Shane was a teenager. He already had more first-hand experience with the paranormal than most. He uses his first-hand experience and knowledge to continuously help others, and I've seen that myself. It is because of Shane's complete open-mindedness, drive, and experience that has justified statements calling him one of the best, and I am one of the ones who calls him one of the best. And I don't give that compliment easily, as you know. He's been featured on programs and publications such as Fox 25 News in Boston, WGIR 101.1 FM, WHEB 100.3 FM, and I'll go on, and we'll never get to talk to him. What is the Manchester Hippo?
It's a free magazine, kind of like a newspaper magazine. It's actually fantastic. It pays attention a lot to Manchester city life, and actually Nashua now, Nashua, New Hampshire.
Manchester, New Hampshire,
has one as well. But it's a great little magazine.
Also the Foster Sunday Citizen and the book Footsteps in the Attic, which Ben just mentioned, and Shane is mentioned in there. One of the cases right here in Woonsocket that we began together on. Okay, so Ben, why don't you take the first question. Just remind people, too, give us a call if you'd like, 401-766-1240 locally, or nationally, 800-449-1240, anywhere in the USA.
All right, let's start with the first thing on the list here. What are you working on currently?
Right now, we're focusing on a lot of speaking engagements, appearances, things like that. I've been spending a lot of time with helping other groups and other individuals, other researchers with their cases, consulting, if you will. We're a little slow with our own investigations. We've been focusing all our time on helping other groups get through theirs.
Yeah, that brings up an interesting question. Ben and I sometimes talk about is the and you don't often hear this, the politics behind the paranormal, so to speak. There seem to be a lot of, groups, and that's why we don't get. People are always asking us to join their groups, and we won't do it because very often in life there are people who for whom feuds and intrigues are the greatest pleasure of life, and I can't deal with that. So you must encounter that all the time. Politics between paranormal investors, especially ghost hunting groups and all this sort of thing. What's your take on that right now, as far as the state of the field is concerned?
Yeah, I mean, between other groups, there is a lot of negativity. There's a lot of individuals and groups running down others. It's all a jealousy thing, and but we got to keep in mind we got to stay focused on the big picture, and that we should be all in doing this to help people and further our understanding of the paranormal. So it shouldn't be a beating session. We should be, these people are, there's a lot of them out there, that are just focusing all their energy on, beating up on other people. It shouldn't be what it's about. So
yeah, well, I often will chuckle. There's an old saying that if a group of Americans are lost on a desert island, the first thing they'll do is get together, draw up a constitution, and elect leaders and appoint people in a sort of a chain of command. And you see that in this. The first thing people do is get together, and you got an investigator, the assistant investigator, deputy assistant, whatever.
It's like Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, like Lord of the Flies. Yeah, Lord of the what? I don't know. But it just strikes me. I suppose that has its use, but I find it a little bit amusing. I don't know. Now, you had a very interesting experience as one of the network ghost hunting shows, which kind of indicates some of what goes on behind it. So have we. But your story was very interesting. We're not going to name the show or the network, but tell us what happened to you.
Well, we've spoken to quite a few different networks and production companies on different shows, but about last winter, or it was actually last fall, we were contacted by one who they told us that they were looking for a replacement for the team on their show, and that they were strongly leaning our way and everything. So sure, if I could put myself in a position to do this and make a living at it, so I wouldn't have to do anything else for an income, what better case? That's perfect. So sure, we'll entertain that. So we set up a time to meet them at an investigation in southern New Hampshire, is where that one was. And they basically they had high definition cameras. They followed us around all day, during the investigation. And basically, what they did when it comes down to it, they filmed us talking to the client. They took our techniques, our information, the way we dealt with our clients, and they basically used it for with their current team. It was kind of like maybe a training session for them, because they're stealing word for word right out of our mouth. And if they help the people that they were on these shows by stealing our information, if they help people with it, then it was good. But at the same time, just a total waste of my time. And I'm getting a lot of friends, like there's 3 or 4 other groups that had something similar happen to them, but their case was stolen right out from underneath them. They met with the production company, came out, said they were gonna do the case with them. We are going to be on this show with us, and we'll do it together. And so they said sure. So they get up in the morning, get ready to go to the investigation. They meet for coffee, and before they were done at the restaurant, they get a phone call and say, hey, we're all set. We ran out of time. But what they did was they went in behind them and did the investigation and stole it out from underneath them.
Years ago, they used to at least give you credit or pay you for your ideas. That's the way it worked in show business, so to speak. But now, and I've heard this from a lot of the people who are guests here, and Mike Assorti even, who was the guy, Tom D'Agostino, who was one of our local guys here, and they just now they just come in and steal it.
Yeah.
And I suppose you could have a legal case against them, but maybe they don't expect you to be that sophisticated.
It was funny too.
It's a good thing Mom's a paralegal. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't think they're dumb enough to try and do that with us.
I don't know.
But especially if you're going to go in and steal people's techniques and their methods and how they help people, then shouldn't they be the ones on that show? Someone like you or I.
Yeah.
But what can you do?
Well, again, it's entertainment. It's not science.
Right, and that's exactly what these shows are.
Yeah.
They're entertainment, and I mean, if you like them, I don't enjoy them myself, but
I don't either. I don't really even watch them. I mean, I liked the whole theory behind our show is that there is this large group of intelligent people who are interested in this subject, but are turned off sometimes way turned off by the shallowness and the silliness of these shows. And another thing I've heard too, and this is from a producer who contacted us who was very honest. And he said, very often they will, the production staff will rearrange the events in the case so that they do not follow the progression that they actually followed, and just to make a better story. And there have been producers I've refused to work with because they wanted to over-dramatize. I remember one, particularly the vampire cases here in Rhode Island, the historic ones, which were not vampire cases at all. It was a big misunderstanding. Very frightening, but nevertheless, and they wanted to make it look like there really were vampires in the classic sense. So this is what you deal with. Have you had any contacts lately with anybody in the network world?
Not really. I mean, but yeah, just to touch on what you were saying too, that I basically got out of one of these producers on the show. And he pretty much admitted to me that that's exactly what they do. Was what you said. They rearrange the footage, they cut it up and piece it together to make it look like this series of events went down that it didn't really go that way. But they totally admitted that to me, which, I mean, it's fine. I'm not bashing on the shows. I think I would love to be there as long as. What's important is they got to make sure that they help the person, the client, in the end. I mean.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Well, let's remind everyone of our numbers again. For 401-766-1240 locally, or nationally at 800-449-1240. And so let's just jump right into our next question. Our very initial plan for paranormal training, for a training program, born out of the frustration of people with people that need help at a long distance. What do you think about that? Us starting some sort of paranormal training program
for people that need help.
I'm speaking of the three of us. I mean, because I think of all the people out there, you're the one we trust the most. And you know how that happened? If I can just back up a little bit.
Go for it.
That case here in Woonsocket, 10 years ago, you were kind of sitting out there lonely in a car there, and because the guy told me you were going to come down, he contacted you through the internet, and we kind of met, and we kind of circled around each other.
Yeah.
What's this guy about? And we went in, and you, I guess being the older one by many decades, you let me speak first. And I explained how I believe this was a parasitical entity or whatever I said, and both your thumbs went up when I said you bring in love and positive energy to help fight these things. And I said, hey, this guy knows what he's talking. So it was really, we had very similar theories. It's not because you agreed with me, because we would agree on everything.
Right.
But I just thought it was you really had your head on straight, and I've never changed that opinion. So that's how that started. But so therefore, I would consider you sort of a prime guy to if we were to start some kind of, not a group, but some sort of a basic training program.
Like a coalition.
Like a coalition, exactly. For the simple reason that we are flooded every week by emails and communications from people all over the world, as are you. People who need help, serious help, and who seem to have all the earmarks of, just at first reading, of possibly having parasite problems or demonic or whatever you want to call it. And it's very frustrating if they're in Texas or in Australia. You can't just, nip down there in your Gulf Stream and, take a look at what's going on in their house.
Right.
So hence the idea of maybe getting some sort of basic program for people who want to assist us, operating on our theories, coming out of the 19th century, coming out of the seance room, being open-minded to what's going on, and maybe being able to be of some help to people that way, because we just can't handle it.
Right.
So that's the idea.
I think it's great.
Yeah. So we're going to be working on that, talking about it, and as far as how we would do it, I don't know. I know that I'm teaching now with the International Metaphysical University now, which I would not have gotten involved with had it not been for the fact they have a real expert working on actual accreditation. I respect people with degrees from accredited institutions, okay? And this would be the first accredited metaphysical school since Aristotle, or I don't know, but they're working on it, and I think they're going to do it. So I think some sort of program along those lines, either through that school or through one of our own websites, might work. I don't know. We'll see. Some kind of even PowerPoint stuff, and maybe people pass a few tests or answer a few questions. I don't know. You want to be able to trust people.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we'll work on that, and you'll hear more about it as we go. So again, let's talk about some of the cases that you have worked on. And you do have a group. Why don't you tell us about your group and your website, trueghost.com?
Yep. Well, I've been doing this almost 20 years, and the whole group thing was, I've always did it by myself, and I got so busy. It was kind of like, once I started the website, I thought, it'd be great to have some kind of help, with the website, with the articles, with the stuff to keep that thing going. But I just finding the right people was just impossible, because I'm very picky with who I'm going to bring with me into these things, as you are. And I got a phone call one time from my father, who was over visiting a friend, and said, hey, there's this lady over here. You got to meet this young lady. So I went over there, and it was Trisha. We talked for a little while. Her name's Trisha Thibodeau, and she had a lot of. I mean, she was young. She had just turned 18, but she had a lot of the same ideas that you and I share. And I thought she was, fantastic. And so she's been with me. And Sean Zarella, who's the founder of Massachusetts Ghost Hunting Society, he's with us now as well. And
I've heard of him. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's our team, Sean and Trisha. And
nice small size.
I forget the other question.
You don't have. Well, no, just no. Actually, some of the cases that you have worked on. I know you've. I remember several places way back that had to do with hotels. Haunted hotels or things of this kind, and also a former convent. I think I was with you on that one. And we haven't worked on that many cases together, but it does go back a few years. In the area, was it Greenville, New Hampshire?
Yes.
Okay.
I remember that one.
Yeah. And you also talked about a theater in Nashua that you investigated as well. Yeah, whatever you think would be most interesting for people to hear.
Probably one that's fresh in my mind, because we do so many of them that, I kind of forget, but I was going over a case file just last night on one, and actually I was going through some of these files for things to talk about, and what I realized was, after the investigation with one of those production companies for those TV shows, all our investigations were ripped out of what we call the book of paper. It's where Tricia will jot down all the notes and everything. We had probably 6 or 7 years worth of investigations in that booklet. And all the pages are ripped out of it, except for that very investigation.
So you're saying these people stole your actual case notes?
I don't know, but we're very protective over that, and we were that day. And that's the last time that particular folder was out on an investigation.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty strange.
You really are looking into legal action.
Yeah, it's all good. I try to keep it positive, so everything happens for a reason. You
have more patience than I have.
Yeah.
But but one that very active, much like the one that you and I did here in Woonsocket, was a family in southern New Hampshire that we did, and that was a pretty nasty case. And we may be going back just to do a check-in. Things started to kick up a little bit over there, but they had been good for like 3 years. Basically, a lot of tension in the family. There was some son of the man of the house from his first marriage moved in. There was some tension there. There was all kinds of things going on in the house, but very, very active. I remember one of their smaller kid, I think he was like 5 years old, brushing his teeth. vanity door opened and hit him and sent him into the tub. A speaker that was built into the wall, a big giant, speaker from the 70s, that came flying out across the finished basement. I mean, clear right across the finished basement. A metal bracket came flying across the same basement, hit the man in the leg.
I know what that's like.
Ton of activity, and a lot of this stuff we weren't there for, but a lot of activity happened while we were there as well. I was in the daughter's room, and I was setting up a recorder, and actually I was checking on the recorder. I was leaving, and you get that feeling, something's coming in, like a presence. And I paused for a second, and I waited, and nothing. As soon as I touched that light switch and it blinked off, I heard like rustling, like what was that? And I turned back on the light. There was a picture that was wedged in the frame of this full-length mirror. And it was really in there. And I remember looking at that picture because it reminded me of my sister when she was younger. And that picture was clear across the room, like 20, 25 feet. And it was just a little picture. There's no way. I mean, all the windows were shut. So it was definitely trying to get my attention. Tricia and I was interviewing the woman of the house at one point in her bedroom. It was the first time that we got a chance to, get her alone and talk to her. And I felt there was a need to do so. She seemed very shy to talk and stuff, so I thought maybe if we could get her in with Tricia, being a female as well, maybe she would open up a little bit. As soon as we got her in the bedroom and we were talking to her, there was these discharges all around her head. I mean, just sparks going off all around her head. And Tricia, who was kind of like, I could tell she was kind of envisioning what the lady was telling us, so she was kind of like daydreaming, but she was listening. And I nudged her. And she looked up, and that was the first real activity that Tricia witnessed on an investigation. She just grabbed my wrist really hard and was squeezing, to let me know she saw it. And I had asked her after. I said, "Did you see it?" She said, "Yeah, it was like fireworks."
Yeah.
And very, very active case and beautiful family. But things were slow. Like nothing. We educated them. We told them things not to do, and then things to do. They followed it all to a T. Things were good. They told us about. I called them just to check in. This was maybe probably 5 years ago now. 6 years ago, going on 7 years, I think. Actually, they say it was just about a year ago. Something started, acting up, and then it quieted down again. But now things are starting to. But they said, Shane, it's because we stopped doing what you told us to do. So we may go back and just touch up with them.
Well, we follow cases, for years. Matter of fact, I was on a show myself, and the guy asked me, I think it was George Nuri, as a matter of fact, he said, how long have you worked on that case? I said, 10 years. 10 years, Because, the more you look, the more you find, and these things cannot just be put away. Half the time you've got energies in the geotechnic energies in the ground. We have all kinds of things going on, and you can't just put them away. You got to keep monitoring and make sure that people are, as you say, doing what they're supposed to be doing. Now, let's get into an area here that's a little bit controversial among paranormal investigators, or people who call themselves paranormal investigators. Now, after having done this for 40 years, I'm to the point where I don't need anything proven to me anymore. I mean, obviously on a case-by-case basis, you look and see what the people are, you look at that. But as far as these things occur, I don't need to have it proved to me anymore, I also long ago gave up trying to prove anything to so-called modern science because they're not going to believe it anyway, no matter what you have. 50 years ago, the Rhines, whom I knew, were at Duke University trying to prove this stuff, and nobody believed it then because of the statistical probabilities and all these different. So we're in it to help people. I know you are too. Our techniques have evolved over the years, and one of the things that has changed our techniques too has been Ben's involvement. And we had a horrified listener write in about. Oh no! Actually, it was something we found on the web. They were commenting on my last book. And they said he meditates in haunted rooms. They're horrified. Now, I pointed out on the air, I don't meditate in haunted rooms. You meditate in haunted rooms.
Yeah.
Ben has developed his own kind of techniques for finding out what's going on. Because one of the things that I find is that as the person who's coming in there, and you probably find it too, the people will talk your ear off. You don't have any time to kind of go around and in silence let the site teach you. Because the best 2 words that I've heard for learning about a case are shut up. Just shut up and let the site teach you. You can't often do that when you're heading the investigation. But Ben can, because he'll wander off and nobody pays attention to him. So tell us about your experience in that Lester Mass case.
I don't know how to take that. People just sort of leave you alone. They don't.
Well,
they
no, I mean that with
you.
the highest compliment. I mean, I'd have you by my side anytime.
Just the way you put it just sounded so funny.
Well,
it's like they just ignore you.
My job is to entertain the listener.
I know, and entertain
but
me,
you have developed some very interesting techniques that have gotten to the bottom of things in a matter of like 5 minutes.
Well, yeah, it's because most recent thing we did, is just sat in that room with like the energy, like the giant river of energy just coming up from those 2 floors.
Yeah, that was 3 nights ago.
Yeah. I was just like sitting there, and I was like just chilling out, just like meditating and stuff, and it was really hot in there. Actually, it was like amazing. It was sweltering in there.
Yeah.
And like the rest of the house, it was just like, or apartment, whatever.
Yeah.
It was just so hot in there. I was just like, I don't know what's going on. Like you were like, oh, it's probably some human presence. I was like, no.
No, you got it before I did. You pinned it down before I did.
It's because your mind is being weighed down by what's her name over there?
Yakking with the people, and that's an important part of it. We do long interviews and ask very serious and important and personal questions. But I mean, that's how we work together as a team. But we've developed our own techniques. But a lot of groups would be absolutely horrified by any hint of the psychic. God forbid you go in and but now some more groups are working with psychics, but others are still wouldn't have anything to do with it. But when you've dealt with this stuff for so long, it's not boilerplate. But there are things that they just look for, because these parasites, when you're dealing with them, in my opinion, most of them are 2-dimensional thinkers. They act in similar ways in similar cases. I swear I've run up against the same individual ones on a number of occasions as well. But others are not like that. But anyway, in most of the cases we've been working on, this is how we've kind of developed. We didn't plan it this way.
It's like a tag team.
So what's your reaction to that? I mean, would you ever use a psychic? I know there was one you were friendly with, but on a case, have you ever used the psychic route to sort of help determine what's going on, or is it strictly quote-unquote scientific?
Yeah, no, not someone that goes around calling themselves psychic. Trish and I both are sensitive, and
that's the word.
Yeah, and we have our own gifts. I don't talk about them and things like that. But this is basically why I'm into this, and what got me going into this was these certain sensitivities that I have and the things that I experience. So, and I've learned how to use them to help other people with because I got a more of an understanding because of the experiences that I had, and I was fortunate enough to be able to play around with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so and I do much like when I have the opportunity to do like what Ben does. If I can get into a place and just silence and just let myself be a sponge to everything around us. And there's nothing strange about it. People say, oh, wow, that's goofy or whatever.
You have to know what you're doing.
Yeah, it's really not. It's emotion plays into this thing so much. And you go in there, and if you can just, act as a sponge, and you, like I say, emotion plays into it. So you'll pick up on things. It's just like, people who are empathic, but yeah, I do the same thing when I can. You know. Sometimes we go in, you're bombarded with this happened and this happened, that happened, and this happened, but
Okay. Well, we're going to take a commercial break, and we're here on Behind the Paranormal with Shane Sirois, and we're going to be right back to get a little deeper into the subject of paranormal investigations.
New River Press is proud to sponsor tonight's segment of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Benjamin Eno. New River Press offers the best in unusual New Age books. Stand by the side of tonight's host, Paul Eno, as he battles poltergeists and helps suffering souls and families in the critically acclaimed books Faces at the Window and Footsteps in the Attic. Plunge deeper into the paranormal with Paul and learn about its influence on human history, its action in our daily lives, and its ultimate meaning for us in the best-selling Turning Home, God, Ghosts, and Human Destiny. Available now from New River Press, publishers of unusual books. Visit newriverpress.com, amazon.com, or your favorite bookstore. And set for release late this year in one of the most unusual books on the subject ever written, Paul gives us Dancing Past the Graveyard, What Ghosts Have to Say About God.
Okay, we're back behind the paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno here on WON 1240 AM and ONWorldwide.com. And our guest this morning is Shane Sirois, well-known paranormal investigator, very, very good friend of ours, whom I would have by my side anytime, and I'm sure Ben agrees. Now, before we get into some of these very interesting emails we received here, Shane, I wanted to know something that a lot of people wanted to know, your opinion on the danger of going on an investigation with a light heart or something and bringing something home with you. That's how it's usually put to us. What's your opinion on the likelihood of that occurring with certain entities?
Well, that's a question that's asked quite a bit, and it's what everyone wants to know, but the fact of the matter was what I found is absolutely it can follow you home. They do follow you home, and even the fear the fear of something following you home. Those are the people that are most likely to have it happen to them. The ones that really go into that with that just agonizing fear of that happening. They're more likely, but even if it doesn't, and I think you and I dealt with one individual who really believed that happened, and I don't think it did initially. I think it was a point of hysteria that he put himself in based on what he experienced at an investigation that you and I were both involved with.
Yeah.
So I think that sent him overboard. But that type of hysteria, I think we dealt with that for quite some time.
Well, in a way, we're still dealing with it.
Yeah. So
I mean, this is what happens when you treat this like bird watching.
Right.
It's much more serious.
And that can open the door, too, to these, as we know, to these parasites, because, that vulnerability and that you become a target, for these things. But absolutely, they can follow you home. And, that's what I tell these people. If you're going into this thing for nothing but a scare and because you like to get scared or whatever the thing is, it can't be all about that, because that you're going to get something that you're not prepared to deal with.
Yeah. Ben, do you have any thoughts on it? Do you ever feel anything's trying to...
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Yeah. Well, you seem to be like I don't know, the Dick Tracy of the paranormal. It rolls off your back. Nothing seems to bother you.
Because I don't really think about it.
Yeah.
That's the key. You just don't really think about it. You're like, oh, look, this guy's trying to come home. Just like, you don't exist. Even though you really do, I just don't think of it like that.
That's probably a good attitude. Plus, at home, we have a lot of spiritual defenses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the house is very, very nice to us. It's all like, I'll put up with your clutter and stuff.
Don't talk about the clutter. Hope Mom's not listening. All right. Okay, well, let's get into some of these emails then. This is one we get all the time, and I'm sure you do too, and it can be sad or whatever. And this is from Diane, and I don't know if I can pronounce the last name, but she's from Roseburg, Oregon. And Ben, I'll let you read the question.
And said question is, I would like to know the best way to try and contact my dead mother and dear friend. I know you are not a big fan of Ouija boards or seances.
Really?
What is the best way to go about this? So,
all right. You want to take a hack at that? Get this, day in and day out, they want to contact their dead relatives.
Yeah.
See, firstly, I think it's the wrong question. And you can't get the right answer if you ask the wrong question. What say you?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. I mean, because you don't know who, when you pay attention to, I mean, it's good to talk. If you want to talk to your loved one, I say, definitely do it. I do it. But if you want some kind of sign back, some kind of signal back, you may be getting something that, it's not. That type of, you're going to open a door, you're waving a flag. And that's the same thing with these.
You're ringing the dinner bell.
Yeah. And that's the same thing with the same way that Ouija boards work. It's not that that's a nasty tool or nothing like that. It's just a way that it focuses your attention on the subject and it opens that door. So, and that's where these parasites come from. So if you're just, going to talk to a loved one with nothing but an intention to get, some kind of a signal or some kind of sign back, it's a bad idea. Talk to your loved one, and it should be good enough.
Well, I would go even further than that. I'd say that with and all of our older listeners know that we deal on the multiverse theory of this. Right. We don't believe the 19th century thing of a spirit world, a veil, and our world. I think there are lots of worlds, and in plenty of which we live, and in many of which these loved ones have never died. And that when you see a ghost, quote unquote, more than likely, in my opinion, you're seeing the actual person, body and all, going about his day, or there can be contact. I think it's fascinating from the viewpoint of history, archaeology, philosophy, certainly. And I think what you're dealing with here is that when you have someone whom you love who has died, that's not the case. Death is impossible in the multiverse, even for the body. And so as a result, you don't have to do anything special. Your relationship has changed, but it has not ended. If you simply have there's a certain power of presence that we experience day to day with people we love. Even if they're not there, they're there. And even if they have quote unquote died, they're still there. There are times when you just have to say goodbye. Sometimes there wasn't a good relationship, maybe, or whatever. Or these people have, their consciousness has other things to do in their other lives that they're living at the same time. But when there's love there, nothing is more powerful than that. And there's nothing you can do to break it. Be aware. Be aware of the power of presence, of the simple love that's there. There are too many words in our lives anyway. Believe me, as a talk show host, I know that as it is. But just let it be. Let it go. And be aware that it's happening already. You don't have to do anything. And stay away from the Ouija boards and this stuff. I mean, you're ringing the dinner bell for something you don't want. So that's my opinion on that. And that's Shane's opinion, I'm sure, to a great degree. Okay. Here's one. Getting into Satanist issues. We've never dealt with Satanism on this show. In the whole 80-something shows,
83, I think.
83, 84.
Yes.
And this is from Addie in Manville, Rhode Island, right in our listening area here. And Addie writes, let Ben read it. It's a little complicated.
Okie dokie. An old friend and myself have been having issues with an ex-friend lately. We cut ties a while ago when she started acting weird and having strange habit changes. Shortly after, my friend and myself have been having bizarre paranormal experiences with shadow people and nightmares, and now an odd cropping of physical symptoms out of nowhere. We recently found out this ex-friend had gone satanic, and we think she may be trying to take revenge. Do you know how we could counter this in any way without causing any harm or anyone harm?
All right, well, maybe this calls for some explanation of some of these terms. People will often grab onto terms and they really don't understand and start using them in ways that really aren't appropriate. The word Satanism, in the modern sense, comes from the late 60s when this guy, Anton LaVey, in San Francisco, started the so-called Church of Satan. And I've known some of these people. The thing still exists. And they're usually disgruntled, very often Roman Catholics with axes to grind. And I've never really taken too seriously any religion or so-called religion that finds as its basis being against something. They often are equated with Wiccans and witchcraft and people who are of more traditional nature religions. Okay, but I think that's really ignorant because those people do not even believe in Satan, if you will, and they don't do anything of the kind. And it's like history. It's one big misunderstanding after another. So what Addie means, and I think we may contact her for further information. What she means by the person being involved in Satanism, we can't be sure whether the person actually joined a satanic group. And there are groups that call themselves satanic, and they actually perform sacrifices, and it's pretty sick, most of it. But they are not equated with the witchcraft groups, at least any ones that I'm aware of. I think the answer to this, and I'll see what Shane says about it, is simply to do what you would do in the presence of any negative energy, and that's to bring in positive energy. I call it the Peter Pan theory. Mm-hmm. Think happy thoughts. That has incredible power. Don't be afraid, because you don't want to base it on fear either, because that fear is negative. You bring in positive energy, faith, humor, laughter, and you stick together, and nothing can touch you. That's my experience. So what do you think?
I agree. This negativity that's being thrown at them is it can be a power suggestion too, but it
can be from anywhere.
Yeah, and so this negativity that is being thrown at them is just it's putting a shadow on them, on their thoughts, on everything. So. And that can create problems, that could escalate the whole thing as well. So you got to purge it with positive. Always keep things positive. So
I think what we'll do, Addie, if you're listening, you're welcome to call in. But I think we'll contact you by email and maybe get some more information here. And if you're having further problems, perhaps we can help. Because needless to say, I've still got about 700 emails I'm working on to answer from people with very similar problems, some much worse.
Wow.
So just whoever, I know we have a big internet audience, just bear with me, we'll get to it. Okay, here's an interesting one. This is from Becky Kleitz in Pinkard, Alabama, and Becky writes, as Ben will tell us.
And she writes, I consider myself a pagan, as I believe that if there is a god, there must be a goddess, and that Mother Earth has her own power. I believe there is an afterlife that we create for ourselves through our works here in this life, good or bad. I'm wondering how ghosts and spirits fit into all of this.
Okay, why don't we stop there, because that's a lot to chew on.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Paganism actually is obviously refers to, I guess, non-Judeo-Christian religions, and I don't like to refer to Judeo-Christian. I think the term is inaccurate because Judaism and Christianity, I think, have very little to do with each other. I mean, historically, you can draw parallels, and you can say that one came from the other, but the actual belief systems are very alien to one another when you really look at it. But that's not what we're talking about tonight. But anyway, anything that's not Judeo-Christian is generally popularly considered pagan. There are those who would argue that Christianity is a pagan religion because you've got Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and you get into the theology, this will drive you absolutely out of your mind. But paganism is generally considered polytheism, the worship of many gods. Okay, so this person is essentially saying that this is what she follows, which must be a lot of fun in Pinkard, Alabama, which is in the Bible Belt. Okay. Mother Earth has her own power. Well, yeah. Okay. If there is a God, there must be a goddess. That's a very interesting observation, because if you look at history, theological history, yeah, every god, every male god had a female counterpart, including Yahweh, the ancient Hebrew god, and her name was Shekinah. You look at the most ancient of the Hebrew texts, and you're going to find the Shekinah, who, in my opinion, translated into the Holy Spirit as interpreted today. All the words in Greek and Hebrew that refer to wisdom or the Holy Spirit are Chokmah or Sophia, which are female words. Anyway, and the Hebrew as also was a little strange, because the word Elohim is a masculine word with a feminine word with a masculine, I always mix this up, with a masculine plural ending. But it's the only word like it in any Semitic language. Anyway, so this is rather, I think she's right here. If there is a God, there must be a goddess. Well, the ancients agreed with you, Becky. Mother Earth has her own power. Well, yeah. I believe there is an afterlife that we create for ourselves through our works here in this life. That's an interesting observation. Chime in here, either of you fellas.
It's a lot to chew on, as you said.
It is. It's kind of deep. Did you get into some of these beliefs with some of the people you... how much religion comes into your work when you're dealing with people?
When I deal with people, unless they're extremely religious... and actually, some of these problems come with an extreme obsession to religion.
Oh, yeah.
Those are the only times I deal with religion. But I found the way that I'm best able to help people is to totally bypass the religion.
Yeah.
Religion can be a tool to help them, but I found it's definitely not necessary. So I don't really get into the history of religions and different types because it hasn't proved necessary to how I operate. I deal with the people directly and get to the
Well, that's
root.
kind of what we do. Yeah, you deal with what they believe, and you use that as a tool.
Yeah.
But this is I'm fascinated by this. I spent 10 years in the seminary, so I can't help it.
Oh, yeah.
I'd be interested. Creating an afterlife. That was one of the themes we were going to talk about on the show. We never have yet. Is building your own afterlife. We talk about this all the time. Ben and I talk a lot. We talk at least half an hour a day about all sorts of things that are going on. Not just our work in this, but dreams that we're having. And it's an interesting study because we share dreams very often. We have the same dreams. I'll have a dream that will stop, and he'll pick up where it's where it leaves off. Okay, and that's sort of an interesting thing. But it gets into building an afterlife. We will spend time in our dreams in a certain world. Okay. And which I believe is a way of helping to build one's afterlife, because you make your own bed in the multiverse, so to speak. Okay, so anyway, but be that as it may, her next statement here is we create this afterlife, good or bad. I don't really I don't really call it an afterlife as much as just life, because there's just life. That implies an afterlife implies that you die and you go into some other life. Well, yeah, but I mean, I don't believe in death, so all these lives are being lived simultaneously, I think. And a lot of hypnotists would agree.
I think what you're going to do in your life matters. It's kind of like, think of it as throwing a rock into a lake, into a puddle of water or whatever. Those ripples, what do you want those ripples to consist of? Positive energy or negative? So. Okay.
And then how do ghosts fit into all this? Well, I'm afraid we're running out of time. I think we're going to leave that. We're going to take this up again, because this is a really fascinating email. Ghosts are spirits. I don't know if I believe in spirits in the common sense of the word. I think these are just as physical in their own worlds as we are, in some cases anyway. So we're going to leave it at that, and we're going to have to get into our announcements here, because we're coming down to the end of the wire. But Becky, thank you for this fascinating email. We've only gone through about half of it. And we're going to pick this up again and see if we can answer it more fully. And Shane, do you have any more observations on what Becky's saying here? Do you run into Satanists and stuff like this, and
no,
influencing cases? Because I occasionally have, but not very often.
Yeah, nothing that was overwhelming. I mean, nothing. But like I said, keep it positive.
Absolutely, just keep it positive. And that's even if I've had skeptics come after me and say, "Oh, you're telling people this." What are we telling people? We're telling people to keep it positive, bring love and laughter and faith into their families. What's wrong with that? And they ended up, well, yeah, okay, that's good for any family. Mm-hmm. Ben, you got any final thoughts on that email?
Well, you pretty much covered all the bases, but yeah, you've got it right. I like the fact that we can create our own, not really afterlife, but just another world.
Yeah, it's just again, these are words and they're not good enough.
Yeah, we can't
to
really
describe these realities.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we're down to 2 minutes here, and we're going to finish up. Our announcements here. Always check us out at BehindTheParanormal.com, and we want to thank our producer, Craig Pelletier, the great. And we'll see you right here next Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 4 Pacific, WOON 1240 a.m. and ONWorldwide.com, when our guests will be our good friends Donna and Dudley Vole. Our subject, how the traditional idea of the higher self works with the new idea of parallel worlds.
I always think of rodents whenever I hear vole. The little...
Sure, I sure hope they're not listening.
I know, but... I mean that in the best sense of the word.
They are the most wonderful people. Voles are awesome.
Voles are awesome, and they are awesome people.
Well, they don't spell it the same way.
Exactly.
Okay.
So don't miss our weekly Sunday show tomorrow night on CBS Radio and www.psychiconair.com, and we will be talking with UFO expert Paola Harris. Paola, yeah. That's a weird name, but. About the politics of UFOs, who knows what, including the Vatican, and when they are going to tell us, so you know what, this doesn't, you know what, we're just going to be talking about Vatican UFOs.
We should have a little less caffeine next time.
Yeah,
all right.
I have
no, but I think the Vatican knows quite a bit, and we're going to hear from Paola what they might know and when they knew it and what they're going to tell us. Okay.
Yeah.
That's tomorrow at 7. p.m. Eastern, 4 Pacific, CBS Lifestyle Network, Boston, Detroit, Seattle, and on the internet. See BehindTheParanormal.com for details. So, we're done for the day. Thank you again, Shane.
Hard to find a way to word that.
Indeed. See you next week, folks.
Return to this radio frequency 167 hours from now for another edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno.